Can you be healthy after 9 months of anabolic steroid use? Welcome back to the isolation movement. Today, that's exactly what we're going to be discussing. My blood test from Medichecks, the latest in the series. And I'm going to be running through with you exactly what my levels were and whether there are any nasty surprises along the line. Trust me, you're going to want to wait till the hormone test. First of all, for those of you who are new to the channel, I've been bodybuilding for about 6 or 7 years now. Had about a 2-year gap in between though, where life took over, professional life had to advance and take priority. Now I'm about sort of 2 or 3 years consistently building. I've been on anabolic steroids for the last 9 months or so. And I want to run through with you basically how I got to this point. I started off about 7 years ago now, had about probably 25% body fat, about 160 pounds maybe, 5'10". So not a tall guy, not a lean guy. I was skinny fat, I suppose. Didn't really carry it in many other places than my stomach and my chest. So obviously in clothes looked absolutely fine, but I was definitely a t-shirt pool kid. So over the years, obviously, I've trained naturally. I've built up a strong base. I've trained mostly for hypertrophy, not for strength. And it went fairly well. You know, I had about 176 pounds at my natural peak and about sort of 14-15% body fat. Now I'm sitting at 200 pounds and about 15% body fat, ready to recomp for the next couple of months and then jump into another bulk. So I figured now's the best time while I'm cruising. I'm on 175 milligrams per week of testosterone alongside a small AI dose and some HCG. So this blood test was done about that time when I was starting on this cruise level, about 2 weeks in. So it should fairly accurately reflect my levels. However, there are some surprises, as I hinted to. So to quickly jump into my anabolic steroid use, I actually started off on SARMs probably about a year ago now. Did a cycle of Rad 140 for 2 months, which went well, but decided to move from SARMs. I decided that I felt healthier using a testosterone base. Now I did a testosterone 500 milligrams per week cycle alongside 20 milligrams per day of Rad 140, which brought me to the point I am today. Now I am cruising. I'm about to jump into a bulk with testosterone and EQ. So this is basically where I am now, and we'll talk a bit later about my plans for the future. Now, first of all, I'm going to start off. I'm going to be running through each section. All I managed to get tested was kidneys, liver, proteins, thyroid, estrogen, and testosterone. I also had my iron levels checked, but nothing really to talk about there. And I did try and get my blood count and red blood count, etc. Tested. However, unfortunately, they weren't able to do the test. There was an error there, so I'm going to have to get that redone. So I'll give you the results that I've got currently, and we can run through a bit about the others at another point. So starting off, number 1, kidneys. Now, we started off looking at urea, and urea was fairly high. Now, after looking into this a little bit and reading a UAE study, it appears that basically taking protein powders anyway majorly increases plasma levels of urea within the bloodstream. This means that this could be put down to a mixture of supplementation and other issues, possibly slight use of anabolics accentuating that as well. However, due to the heights shown in that study, it does sort of suggest this is due to the heavy protein supplementation, as I do have sort of 4 scoops, about 100 grams of protein from a shake per day. Now looking at EGFR, that's basically an estimation of how effective your kidneys are, how well they're working. It's generally in the lower-ish level, but it is still within the safe range. It probably should be slightly higher. This is where obviously my more supplementation in terms of my kidneys and liver is going to come in, and I do have a more robust schedule now. However, it's still within normal range, so they're still working fine. However, consistent use of anabolic steroids may cause some damage there if I obviously stick with Blast and Cruise for a longer period of time. So overall, kidneys are fairly functional, just need to dial in the supplementation a little bit. Now moving on to liver. Now ALP was fairly high, let's face it. It's within reference range, but it was fairly high. This is a sign of issues within the liver or kidneys. If it is sort of very high in that outside of that reference range, it's just about normal. And I think this is where moving from my Live 52 to a more robust liver supplementation schedule will be helping this, and this is what I'm going to be doing for my next cycle. Moving on to ALT. ALT is again a sign of liver damage. That was fairly high. However, again, reference range, I think same point basically as ALP there. GGT is actually healthy, and that's a sign of actual disease or an illness affecting the liver or kidneys. So I don't have anything more serious there. It's just that the levels are elevated. It's worth pointing out that a lot of anabolics users test very high in terms of their liver enzyme markers and the kidney markers. So being within reference range is actually a pretty big success for what I've been doing over the last 9 months. Now moving on to proteins, we're not really going to talk about this. Here's the results. All healthy, all good, so nothing to discuss. But let's move on to the thyroid, because this is maybe more of an interesting one. This is all to do with how you burn calories, how your metabolism's working. Now, T4 was slightly in the lower range. However, considering I'm bulking, I don't know how that might affect it. I'd have to look into that more, but generally the thyroid levels were slap bang in the middle. They were absolutely fine. Doesn't suggest that I've sort of burnt myself out at all or that my metabolism's running slow, so that should help towards the bulk that I'm doing to hopefully squash some body fat percentage gain there. Next up will be the exciting one. This will be, first of all, looking at estrogen, then testosterone. Now, I'm going to flash up the estrogen test now. You may know if you've ever had a test like this. This is actually a fairly high amount of estrogen in my system. It is within reference range. However, that reference range is slightly different than the ones advised elsewhere. And I would say most of this is going to be caused by the testosterone result coming up next. Estrogen seems to be balanced fairly well. I don't have any gyno. I have some signs of high estrogen within my system, some acne, some skin issues around the neck I had recently, and just a little bit of sensitivity in the nipples, but nothing that seems to be progressing to a gyno stage. So I'm not really tempted to up my aromatase inhibitor use. If I'm honest, the side effects and the issues of AI dosing going too far sort of outweigh the possibilities of gyno at the current levels that I'm at now. I feel like I'm within a safe reference range, and high estrogen is good for a lot of other things within your body, such as hair growth, muscle growth, loads of great things. So you don't want to get rid of that just because it's high end of reference range. If it's in the reference range, I say just be comfortable with it. Keep your protocol as it is now, and make sure that if you can make a tiny tweak, you do. But I use capsules, so very hard to reliably split the dose there into smaller fractions than I already am. Now, yes, you've been waiting for it, the shock result. Here is my testosterone result. So, I don't really know where to go with this. I posted actually in sort of the daily chat about this on Reddit, and I was asking anybody who'd seen sort of results this sky high at an 175 milligram cruise rate. I was actually using prop, so if anything, shouldn't have been much left over from my actual cycle. It was about 3 weeks now, I think, after I stopped the cycle that I got these results done. So this testosterone level is very high. However, the important thing is to mention that prop fluctuates a lot more when pinned every other day than an NFATE would. An NFATE's got a half-life of 3.5 days, so when you pin it every other day, it's very stable. It's a small little spike and drop. With prop, because the half-life is a lot shorter, I believe about sort of between 1 and 2 days, daily it spikes like that. So it goes up and down massively throughout the day. Because of the fact that it metabolizes much quicker. So I could have caught it right at one of these spikes, although very unlikely given it was just before my next pin. It was about sort of 8 hours before that, so it wouldn't really suggest that I would have abnormally high levels. There is a chance the gear is overdosed. I have underground labs, so there is a chance, not the highest of chances, because of course that would be an extreme level of overdosing for somebody selling, unless they were trying to sort of rope people in amazing results. There is also a chance that I'm a great genetic responder. So that would mean that, my basically my body just metabolizes it much better and it gets boosted in my system and I can get much better results off much less gear. This is possible that all these things combined. It's also possible there was an error with the test and it was read wrong. I can't say for sure. And I will be getting another test basically just before I start my blast, which will be probably the end of this month now. We'll see what the gym situation is, see what the equipment cost situation is, because as an amateur, I don't have money from this, so spending the money is very difficult right now, especially on cutback wages. Look, draw from it what you will. Comment below if you've got any form of advice on what this might be from, whether it's a bunk test, whether this is genuinely something that can happen, or whether you've had results like that before. Look, all in all, I am healthy at this point. I am 207 pounds, 15% body fat, still on a cruise, a fairly high level cruise, probably about 50 milligrams per week above TRT. So, that should sustain this kind of physique. In fact, if anything, TRT probably could. But I will be looking to bulk again, and you want to make sure that those little things that couldn't get checked, like red blood cell count and stuff like the testosterone level, which was an anomaly. If you get stuff like that, you want to make sure that you're retesting before you jump into anything, because if that comes back twice, then I'm almost in a conversion unit for the American testing. It'd be 4,500 nanograms per deciliter, which is what most people struggle to get to with a full-on blast. So, look, if you don't get it retested, you'll never know, and then you could have an issue where that much testosterone in your system causes a chain reaction of problems, which then start to affect those organs, and you never know if between now and then you can face some serious organ damage. So, anything can happen at any time. Keep consistent with blood tests, guys. If you're going to jump into this world, then make sure that you're doing it safely. You've got a good testing source. You know that you have the finances put aside to do this and to supplement correctly and to purchase more supplements if they come back a bit out of line with the normal range. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. Subscribe, like this video, please, if you enjoyed it. If you didn't, whatever, drop your comment below. Give me some tips on next time. If you want to see more information, recommend ideas for videos, you know where I am. I do fitness FAQs, which is frequently asked questions. If you have any, drop them down below and they will get answered. Watch the next video, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.